questions. I call Graham Simpson, followed by Pauline McNeill.
Can I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement? The planning bill contains some positive steps which we would support, but I want to focus on some of the more draconian measures being proposed. For example, the proposed infrastructure levy could be retained by government, not councils. Why and on what grounds, and why hasn't the government decided what sort of levy it wants? The bill would also order councils already cash-strapped to prepare annual performance reports. Will they be given extra money to do this? And quite separately, there's a power to send in a Scottish Government troubleshooter if a minister decides a council's planning department isn't performing, and there could be fines for non-cooperation. The Scottish Government would even be able to take over a planning department. This runs a coach and horses through any pretence of localism. Can the minister say under what circumstances he would use this power grab, and on what grounds he has brought forward these proposals? How does he define underperformance? Because the bill certainly doesn't. What is the problem he is trying to fix? And finally, councillors would have to pass an exam to take planning decisions. This affects all councillors whose right to take those decisions is surely determined by the voters who elected them in the first place. Again, the Scottish Government reserves the right to take over if a council doesn't play ball. What's the justice for this effrontery to democracy?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, within the bill there is the ability, as Mr Simpson points out, the provision for the introduction of an infrastructure levy through regulations. However, that levy itself would be spent locally and not nationally. But beyond that, as I've already pointed out to Mr Simpson previously in discussions that we've had, at this moment I do not feel that we are in a position to knowledgeably introduce that infrastructure levy, and that is why we will continue to do work on that particular issue. I would draw members' attention to the recent analysis that has been done, that's been posted on the Scottish Government website on that issue. I have asked my officials to continue to work in that, and that will be the case. In terms of performance reports and additional costs, as Mr Simpson asked, as I said in my statement, I would look to increasing planning fees if we see movement in performance. I've already done so since I took up post. I've made it quite clear that I want planning authorities to invest that money in their planning services. Many authorities are doing that, and we are seeing much better performance in that regard. A number of the things which have come up across my desk during the course of being in post is round about performance. And there was provision in the 2006 Act to look at performance much more closely and allow further ministerial intervention if that was required. That is something that a power that I would hope not to use, but the reality is that if a situation occurs where an authority is not performing well, then we should have our options open. And Mr Simpson's last point was around about the training of councillors and councillors having to sit an exam. Well, currently councillors and licensing board have to undergo statutory training and sit an exam at the end of it. A number of people believe that that situation has led to improvement in terms of decision making around about licensing. A lot of people are not entirely happy with the current situation around about, as they see it, a lack of training for elected members. The bill will allow for that training, and I do not see what problem there would be in that, because I think that that is the most important thing of all, that decision makers understand the reasons why they're taking the decisions that they are.
Pauline McNeill, followed by John Mason.